How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys Alex and Ryan. So, disappointing loss yesterday. Couple things to discuss. I'll tell you what, I think if Aaron Judge played in that game, we probably win. We left a lot of men stranded on base. A lot of guys we could not get in. Gleyber Torres had some non-competitive at-bats and, left the bases juiced at one point. So, looking at this kind of team right now and the weaknesses that are being exposed, one of the primary ones is the bullpen. The bullpen has been taxed. They're gassed. They look like they've been beat up. Tommy Kahnle's really struggling to get back to form. He's lost 2 miles an hour on his velocity on his fastball. We hope he can get back to full, capacity there, where he's hitting close to 96. Right now he's around 93. So that's a little bit problematic. And Clay Holmes has given up 5 earned runs in his last 3 appearances. Another very problematic situation to be in if you're the Yankees, who you need Clay Holmes to be your primary closer. Can he close out a World Series? Right now, I don't think so. But the Yankees made a move on Thursday. It's not going to be a high leverage arm. It's not going to be something that we expect big things from, but we're going to talk about some underlying metrics we do like about this pitcher, and that is Tim Hill. Played for the Chicago White Sox this season before being released. Not so good, but there are some stuff that we think Matt Blake could expand upon and maybe get some good value, similar to Michael Tonkin, who's been excellent for the Yankees since coming from the Mets and Twins. We think that Hill has some good attributes, some things that could play in Yankee Stadium, and for this bullpen just offer a fresh arm, really. But Ryan, before we dive into Tim Hill, what he has to offer, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing great. As you mentioned with the Yankee bullpen, it's become a weakness, right? Like, I think you can look at the offense and say they're not deep enough, but you just scored 6 runs without Aaron Judge. Like, how many times did that happened last year? Like, let's break down this game for a second here before we get into Tim Hill. The Yankees scored 6 runs, made a comeback down 5-1. Giancarlo Stanton hits a 3-run blast. Giancarlo Stanton, by the way, has been excellent with runners scoring position this year, which, I think you and I have certainly looked at him and said, hey, like, the defensive value isn't there, the base running value isn't there. He has to hit. And he's done that. Like, to kudos to him, he's just done nothing but hit. You have to in that game. Your bullpen has to step up. And Aaron Boone went to guy after guy after guy, and guy after guy after guy let him down. So, they need help there. And Tim Hill, look, is Tim Hill gonna, as you mentioned, come in and, like, light it up? I don't know. Like, I think it's unfair to rely on Tim Hill to save your bullpen. That feels like hopeful or optimistic, or a little too hopeful and optimistic. That's delusional. But can Tim Hill help this bullpen? I think he can. I think he can be an addition. I think he can, give them a little bit of a boost. The Yankees have a negative 0.4 WAR from their left-handed relievers this year. That is the 3rd worst mark in baseball, right? Like, this is weird territory for us, Alex. Like, the Yankees have a bad bullpen. Like, this is weird territory. I know the ERA isn't that bad, but I think I can agree the ERA is a little misleading. Now, Tim Hill isn't going to help the Yankees pick up more whiffs, which is something you do need in their bullpen, but he does keep the ball on the ground. He's coming from a White Sox team that plays atrocious team defense. They have negative 48 defensive runs saved. And I saw somebody reply to me saying, yeah, I mean, another ground ball pitcher in the Yankees' terrible defense. Like, the Yankees are a top 5 defensive team in fielding run value, defensive runs saved, and outs above average. Yeah, I don't necessarily know how people can conflate that as like being a bad defensive team or whatever. The Yankees frame well. They do a lot of things really well. They're a strong defensive team. They're a strong offensive team. They just need more help from their bullpen. Hill has a weird fastball. Like, his 4-seam fastball is released from super low release height. He can play it up in the zone. Got a lot of ground balls, too. We talked about a sinker before the show. The slider, it's like this gyro, weird slider that's like, it just doesn't move a lot horizontally, but it has sharp drop. And then finally, he's just weird, right? Like, I think weird is good when it comes to pitching. He has the lowest release height for any left-handed pitcher. That means that no matter who you're talking about from the left-handed side, he releases the ball closer to the ground than anybody else. And that might sound like some weird detail. It doesn't matter, but that means that batters don't see release heights like his. They're not going to see guys who throw the baseball like he does, and I think that might be a little creative here, or that might give them a little bit of a creative look. Matt Blake's a smart guy. Sam Breen's a smart guy. This is a smart organization when it comes to pitching. I think they can maximize him. He has a 3.45 expected ERA and a 5.8 something actual ERA. Like, that feels like that differential should swing in his favor, and it could be with the Yankees.
It absolutely could be. And like you said, he has a really good ground ball. He has a similar kind of gyro shape slider to like Clay Holmes and, that big vertical drop. The velocity is, of course, concerning. He's 34 years old. His fastball kind of averages around 90 miles an hour. It's nothing to write home about, but that lefty kind of weird, like kind of submarine action does give him some really nice deception, and that sinker does move. The deception he has between the four-seam fastball, the sinker, and then, of course, the slider, which I think is I know is his least used pitch. Do you think that Matt Blake starts to incorporate that slider more? Or do you think he kind of just keeps him a four-seam fastball sinker guy? We know that he loves to incorporate that slider as kind of that, secondary pitch, try to mix some new stuff into it. But do you think that this is a situation where they're going to stick to the fastballs? Do you think they start to get the slider a little bit more involved, just to try to expand upon, what he can offer?
Yeah, so in my view, I mean, I wrote about his profile and kind of talked about what I would do, and I think it's four-seamers up in the zone. That's his swing and miss pitch. He can get a lot of whiffs there. He actually threw his four-seamer around 30 to 40% of the time in previous seasons. His best years where he was getting strikeouts were those kinds of, I'm throwing my fastball up in the zone and I'm getting a swing and miss. And you mentioned the velocity. I think the velocity isn't good. That's not even a conversation, right? It is objectively really, really bad. But I also think it's important to note that his velocity's never been good, right? Like, it's not like it's trending downwards. It's just he's never thrown hard. So, like, this year his fastball's at 90.7 miles per hour. Back in 2019 it was 90.4, right? He did throw harder in 2021, 92 miles an hour, but he was not really like that. That's like feels like kind of an aberration because his entire career he wasn't throwing that hard. He also gets a good amount of extension. He is a tall dude. He gets downhill. He's he gets 6.9 feet of extension, so the perceived velocity is a little bit higher. And then just kind of wrapping this entire point up here on my end with what I think the Yankees do really well. I think they identify what pitches a pitcher should throw more often, what are their best pitches, and how to get them to command it and how to get them to throw it often. Tim Hill is really, really, really good at that. Like, he's really good at location. He's really good at hitting his spots. He's really good at working counts and that kind of thing. Like, he knows what he's doing. I just think the Yankees need to figure out a way to get him to throw his better pitches a little bit more. Stuff Plus likes him. A 109 Stuff Plus, that's the highest mark he's had since 2022. It was 294 in 2023. He's kind of brought it up a little bit. I think the big thing for me here is that slider, right? A 172 Stuff Plus slider, right? Like, that's going to stand out to me. So I know you've talked about the slider. I think the slider is a pitch for him that he should, I know it's got a 667 slugging percentage against, but it's a 334 expected slugging percentage. Is this a pitch that maybe he can throw with a little more efficacy with the Yankees? Maybe it's a pitch that he gets a little more success with better defense behind him. And then finally, just think about that four-seamer up in the zone, right? If I'm telling you to have him throw more four-seamers up in the zone, that sets up the slider, because low in the zone, you're gonna there's a massive vertical separation there. Sinkers, right? Like, that comes into play as well. Like, all these different pitches, I feel like he has the three pitches he needs to succeed. I just think he needs to shuffle up the movement profiles a little, the usage a little bit, because he does need to bring in some more swings and misses. You can't strike out, 11% of batters face and have a lot of success in this league.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea. Like, I do think that they'll try to keep things relatively the same. They're not going to use Tim Hill in high leverage situations. He's more of a supplementary arm just to help fill in the gaps here. This bullpen is quickly falling down the rankings. I think they currently rank 6th in ERA, which is still well above average, but they were first like 2 weeks ago, right? They've gone from the best, most efficient bullpen to really one of the worst in the last couple of days. So in terms of just their efficiency in that time span, now, it's always safe to expect volatility at some point, but the Yankees did not and do not invest in their bullpen. It is more so like, let's find this journeyman and turn him into a good reliever. The problem with that theory is that eventually they're going to struggle, but if you can get good performance most of the time, you're way ahead of the curve, right? So I think that Matt Blake has done a tremendous job, but there's just not much invested. The only investment they really have is Tommy Kahnle at $11.5 million over 2 years in the final year of that 2-year contract, and he is awful right now. I mean, he's really bad. You can't trust him. So I kind of feel as though Cashman's going to have to be active. I know they have Scott Efron started a rehab assignment yesterday. Definitely exciting news. Lou Trevino, making his way back at some point, hopefully over the summer. Cody Poteet, probably when he comes back, goes into a bullpen role with Garrett Colback and Clark Schmidt also making his way back too. So we'll kind of see how things progress moving forward. Of course, Ian Hamilton's down with the right lat injury, so there are issues because of injury at the moment for this Yankee team, but I don't necessarily think it's like press the red button, like abandon ship time. It's like, all right, let's try to survive until we get some reinforcements here. Hopefully the offense and starting pitching can hold us up in the meantime, which are both very good. So, I think it's more so just like bump in the road, rather it happen now than going into the playoffs type of situation. Tim Hill's fine acquisition just to, eat some innings and serve a purpose, but I don't see him being like a long-term solution on this bullpen unless like we desperately need his arm, which, maybe he bounces back and has a really good, rest of the year for us. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think it's possible, and anything's possible with the way that Matt Blake somehow managed to get these value out of some of these bullpen arms. So I do, like him to be a little bit more efficient. But guys, always happy to your thoughts below on the Tim Hill acquisition. Hopefully we broke him down good enough for you to, at least have an idea of what to expect. Not much, but something is kind of what I would settle in on. We can always be optimistic with Blake as our pitching coach, but always happy to hear your thoughts nonetheless. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.